I'm Arcangelo Newell Madut Paul. The war started in 1983, and immediately I lost my father, who was a traditional leader of a section of Dinka people who were being attacked frequently by the Sudanese armed forces, their popular defense forces, the militias, and our home area, villages and towns were razed, they were burned down, people were being abducted, women raped, and young girls and young boys taken away. I lived through these things at a very young age. And a number of times, I was lucky I escaped. So I separated with my family and my maternal uncle because our area was not safe anymore. We had to journey through days and nights. It took us 3 months to walk from South Sudan to Ethiopia.
My full name is Ajuda Ketch. I'm 20. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. I left Sudan when I was 7, so I don't really remember much because I lived in Egypt for about 3 years and moved to Australia here. I arrived to Australia in 2003. I was 11 at the time and been here since then.
My name is David Newell Vincent. When I was about 7 years old, after the war broke out, all of a sudden there were a lot of corpses on the street and a lot of houses being burned down. And so my father just decided that we had to leave, and we walked for 3 months to Ethiopia and lived in Ethiopia for 4 years. And in 1991, war broke out in Ethiopia, and we were kicked back to South Sudan. And we walked again, crossed the border to Kenya, where I spent another 13 years, and then finally came to Australia. When I first arrived here, I was so eager to find my parents, and when I went back, my father, of course, so it was easy for me to track him down. My mother was the person that I was particularly worried about. I was able to track down my mother, whom I didn't see for like 23 years, and I found out finally that she made it through the war, and I was very happy at the end of the day when I met her.
My full name is Nyadol William Nyon. I was born in Ethiopia because of the war in Sudan, and I grew up in Kenya because of another war in 1991 that occurred in Ethiopia, and then resettled to Australia in 2005. I came with my mom. There was 10 of us. So it was 2 uncles, my mother, and the rest of us were my siblings.
My name is Awan Kwet. I'm 37 from Southern Sudan, but I'm Israeli citizen. I'm from Melbourne. Just the first time someone coming to visit my family, my brothers and sisters, and I would be a long time. I would be more than 21 years. I'm not seeing my parents. So it's a chance to me now to coming back to my people and to visit new country.
My full name is Gabriel Lagur, Gabriel Cholmairo Lagur. I'm South Sudanese born, and I'm Australian citizen. I came back to South Sudan this year. My wife and children in Australia, and my brothers and sisters are here. I came to visit my family and my country, newborn country. It was a dream that we were dreaming to be. So I wasn't here. It was too hard for me to be away seeing the Independence Day. So I came here to see my country.
I'm Akosh Akwe Maniam. My dream has been to help people, help myself as well, not that I'm abandoning Australia, because Australia is my home, my second home. My first home, I'm trying to come back here and share the knowledge that I have acquired in Australia with my South Sudanese fellow. And I've seen it that I can be more useful in South Sudan than in Australia.
In Ethiopia, obviously, the Sudan People Liberation Movement were recruiting, doing training, because everybody understood what was happening was the government that is meant to be protecting its citizens that was actually turning its military hardware, guns and all this on citizens. We were a population that was helpless. So we had to defend ourselves. So regardless of how young you were, because when I was trained, when I was at the age of 8, I went into military training because I wanted to defend myself, to defend my family, to defend my land.
My father was one of the founding members of the SPLM. So, and I never knew my father because he spent so much of his time in the bush, literally, fighting. And whenever he comes, he'll pick someone up, and that was all. That was the maximum interaction you had with him. He'll pick you up and look in your face and say something and put you down. That was it. So for me, one of the reasons why I did go back in 2006 was I was hoping to go back and visit his grave site. But it didn't occur. And then I went back again to vote around December. And then I went back in June for the independence celebrations.
I'm happy to join President Kiir to celebrate the independence of South Sudan. I'm confident that this new country will soon become the newest member of the United Nations, our 193rd member state.
That was amazing. I understood how important it was for the Southern Sudanese people to become independent. We've been in the longest running civil war in Africa, in a sense. It was just really good to see the people finally get something that they've been fighting for so long. And it was just a joyous occasion. People were singing and crying and dancing, and I remember actually crying. It just reminded me so much of what my father and kids younger than myself had to give up for us to have an independent state.
We are happy to be independent, to be our own country. So now we're starting now to be a development to this country where we need to be peaceful. We need to be of more security to our people because the people are suffer for long. We need more school, hospital for everyone to get a chance to go to school. What we see is for now when they get independent, we look at a little bit changes for security, and our government they are make process. They have promised the people. So some months coming, we're going to change everything. So we're happy with that, but we're still waiting for new system to coming up.
In South Sudan, I'm helping the people of South Sudan begin a new life. Frustration and excitement, they go together at the moment because a lot of people need my help. So those pressure are always there because it's a new beginning for everyone, and everyone wants to get their passport, nationalities, and also be registered as a citizen of South Sudan. So this is a pressure that we have in South Sudan. And this pressure always, there's nothing that we can do because we don't have a better system before. This is the beginning of it, and we are actually more careful to find a way that we can strategize a system and make it work for everyone who want their nationalities and who want their passport and also who want to be a citizen of South Sudan. So we are trying to balance the situation. I know it is more pressure. Sometimes we work from morning until 1 a.m. just to make sure we are certifying our citizens.
Pepoke la remwa ki Yesu pepoke. Pepoke la remwa ki Yesu pepoke. Pepoke wadwa ki Yesu pepoke. Pepoke wadwa ki Yesu pepoke. Pepoke wadwa ki Yesu pepoke.
I'm happy because it was a dream. My grandparents and grandparents were dreaming to get an independent country like before, because we have been marginalized by our Khartoum the regime since independence in 1956. So now it's good we have our own country. Actually, it's the first time to be here. I've never been to Juba actually, but there are a lot of changes here. No schools, so this place was just like a fighting place. So now we become a country, and yeah, we hope better than this.
We come back because we need more people coming from overseas, like American, Australian, people come from UK, Europe, to come to help our people, to give them education, to give them mobilization, how we can working together. We need people to be volunteer to our own country to help those people, because those people, they don't have more experience how to develop the country. So we need people coming from different countries and different knowledge and help our people.
We don't have much payment working in South Sudan, but being patriotic and wanting to help others, even you can see a lot of Australians who travel all over the world to volunteer for people, come back to your house and come back to your South Sudan, come back home and try to volunteer. Even though the incentive that you get at work is small, you are the one to build a better system where people can get paid better.
I will come back. I can work to help my country, and if I can do my own business, it's good.
I really never got to see South Sudan or Sudan in general until 2006, after I had resettled to Australia and finished my high school. The funny thing is, I actually did try pointlessly to try and capture what I was feeling at that moment, because I wanted to remember it after a point. And I think that was a totally bad mistake. I should have just taken it as it come, because at the end I realized I was just so much caught up in my own idea of trying to capture what was going to feel like that I didn't even understand what it felt like, So I think looking back, it's funny how after being in South Sudan for a while, I felt so much Australian. I was born in Ethiopia, I grew up in Kenya, I came to Australia, I'm a Sudanese, and it's like, I just did not feel what I thought I would feel, like, oh, this is my country, this is my home. Of course, like, when I go to Sudan, I'm like everybody else, so nobody is like, keep telling me, oh my God, you're so tall, it's like 10 ridiculously tall people just walk by, so it's not a big deal.
Most of these young people, whether they are teenagers or people in their early 20s or even mid-20s, most of these people were born away from home. Some were born in northern Sudan, some were born in East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia. Some of them were born in Egypt and other countries. So you need to understand that, despite them being South Sudanese or being from small groups where they belong to, their journey has not been easy. As refugees, you go through a lot of challenges that are sometimes degrading to your own dignity as a person. Parents go through that. These young people by the time when they arrived in Australia, already you come having gone through a lot. And in Australia, you again step into another culture. And as young people, they take to the new way of life quickly. Because these kids have the environment in which they interact in terms of education or even in employment out there is very different from their home environment, and it creates internal conflict where you have this conflict in you, conflict of identity. Who am I? As a South Sudanese that was born in Kenya, do you see yourself as a Kenyan? Do you see yourself as a South Sudanese or a Sudanese? Do you see yourself as Australian? So all this, sometimes I think it takes a lot of strength, and it takes a lot of soul searching for you to settle well with this identity crisis.
I have to say, a very complicated relationship. I don't think I'm a straightforward Southern Sudanese woman. I think ethnicity is a good thing. They're a source of understanding where we come from, what makes us, but they're not very good at self-criticism and self-reflection. I think when we grow up in an ethnic group or a culture or a tradition, we tend to told that this is the best it can be, that we are better than other people, even though you're not directly taught that. It's taught in the sense that you're told this is a good Southern Sudanese woman. Don't act like a white woman. Don't act like this. Dress like this and talk like this and act like this. That tells you to some degree that this way of being brought up is the best way of growing up. So I think in that sense, most ethnic identities or most cultures somehow by default also set up these notions of superiority over other cultures, and because of that they're not very good at self-reflection, and pausing and finding out what is actually wrong with the way we do things. That's one of the difficulties I have with being a Southern Sudanese woman from a Nuer clan, is that I am not wholly a Southern Sudanese woman.
I came here as a young man on my own, I was age 21 almost, approaching 22, and I've started my own family. I got married back in mid-2008. I went and got married back home. Well, we had a traditional wedding, the dowry and the cows. Yeah. So all these things were done back home, and you could see the strength of these traditions. I've lived away for years, despite most of our lives and properties and all this being destroyed. The family has always endeavored, because I'm from a big family, and the rest of my family continue to live in South Sudan. And traditionally, everybody has their rights within the family.
One thing I've heard a lot of Sudanese men say is that Australia gives women too much freedom. Like it gives them too much power, and it disempowered them. I don't think that's entirely correct. I think what they basically mean is that they can no longer treat their women as instruments to father themselves in this country, or that is much more limited in a sense. Whereas in Southern Sudan, that's exactly what the role of a woman is. It's to cook for your husband, clean for them, is to, do all the domestic things that a woman is supposed to do. So here the women, have to go get jobs, have much more freedom. It really challenged the arbitrary exercise of power that men would have in a Southern Sudanese society. And I think that really affects their identity and the way they see themselves. And that is not the same in Southern Sudan, where they can feel like a Southern Sudanese man.
I mean, tradition is a big thing, and I could never get married if it wasn't in a traditional way. I have no choice. It has to be traditional. I'm not being racist or anything, but I can't marry an Australian boy. I'm just going to have to stick to my culture, even though I do interact with them, and I have had lots of friends who are Australian, but I can't marry. Parents, I won't be allowed to, yeah. Well, my father, he doesn't care what type of race that we want to fall into. He believes everyone's equal. But my mother will be a bit more disappointed because, the culture differences and stuff. And I basically just see myself in the same culture, like marrying someone who's from my type.
It's a really big struggle. And even going to try and get a job and people would offer you marriage first instead of a job. I'm not desperate to get married. You know, like, you can be my third wife. No, thank you. I'll pass, you know. But it's interesting that, you know, here you are, qualified, a professional woman, wanting to get a job, and someone is willing much more to offer you, you know, the fourth position of being his wife instead of, you know, a job that actually qualifies for your skills. How much of who you are, especially if you're a woman, was dictated by a community that had these alternative ideas, so that you almost had to match everyone's single ideas of what a woman should do or what a good woman should do. You know, someone would be okay with you wearing a short skirt, the next minute you're walking down, so someone is coming up to you and saying, "Oh, you prostitute, why are you wearing that?" And it's like people have their own idea of what culture is, and they want to enforce it on you, especially if you are a woman. You know, and I think a lot of Sudanese men who live here live because the systems and the condition over there are very conducive to them, compared to here in Australia, where the rights are much more balanced out. You know, if you go to court in Southern Sudan, you have the right to your children if you're a man. You don't have the right to your children if you're a woman. Here, it's much more complex than that. I think it would have been different if I was a man, because men have much more freedom than women have. The funny thing is that people actually, when I go to Sudan, that's one of the things my relatives tell me. You know, we're so sad you were born a woman. If only you were born a man, you know, then, you know, all these activities and all this energy would be put to good use. And so that I think explains a lot, that even my own relative wish I was born a boy, and they regret and mourn the fact that I was born a woman.
My new country, Australia, I identify with it because they were the first people who made me to be a state person, because I was stateless. My own birth country, South Sudan, all the memories I have about the South Sudan is of war, violence, and all that. So I guess, in a way, I'm torn in between the two, but I find that I'm more Australian than anything because of the opportunities and privileges that I've obtained in this country. In return, then I have to work in a way that I can actually help my birth country, South Sudan, in terms of settling and all that, but in more, I can identify more being an Australian. To me, it's that constant fear that has been cemented in me since I was a child, insecurity, that has caused me to choose to become more Australian than being South Sudan. But that doesn't mean that I can't work or go back and help the situation in South Sudan.
Pride is a very big thing in my family. They try to always remind us of our home, even though we left early. They still keep reminding us about it, telling us how important it is. So I always keep in mind that one day I would like to go there, work, get married, and just live there one day. But for now, it's just getting my life straight and my education and just living in Australia for a while. But I would like to go back home and see what it's like. I'm going back this December, but I don't know what to expect. I don't know. But I am interested and I am up for it, because gotta love your background.
I have been every year since I got back. Since 2007, I had been going back. I've initiated a lot of different programs, and I get involved in a lot of activities that usually takes me back to South Sudan. So I guess, yes, I do have plans to go back. And even now, I have a lot of plans now to travel in September and in December, just following up on some of the programs that I'm working on. Just have to have a place where I can make it as my base, and I guess it's Australia.
I think for me, I will be going back to South Sudan. It's part of my identity, it's part of my heritage, but, you know, I still owe a lot to Australia as well.
I want to go back and really contribute into helping people meet basic things, and that's why I took the area that I took, the specialization that I took, social work, because I basically want to focus on addressing the basic problems, things that we would call basic human rights in countries like Australia and other Western countries. Unless I'm convinced, unless I've gone home and I'm convinced that I cannot help in any way to make lives better for those who have survived, for the civilian population of South Sudan, I cannot literally settle in this country and go on with my life. Because this journey, what people have been through, the losses that I've seen, what I've witnessed, all these things tell me that I was lucky and I survived for a reason. I don't see any other better judgment rather than to say that The reason is for some of us who are now left behind to continue to give back and continue the journey for which many people died. Remember, we lost up to 2.5 million people, and that's not an easy loss. Those are huge numbers.
Katonda mulungi, Katonda mulungi, Katonda mulungi, mulungi kunze. Hallelujah. Katonda mulungi, Katonda mulungi, Katonda mulungi.